And after the show, the poor drummer, I felt so bad. The poor drummer, I swear he was crying during the show. And I came up after him and I said, Yogi, I really appreciate how much you care. I was like, this guy's subbing. He's doing it for not a lot of money. And this is Momo's on like a Wednesday night. This is not like the Carnegie Hall. And he's like, he's disrespecting your music.
You ready, huh?
I guess.
Me neither. We'll do it anyway. Hello, people of the world. Welcome back to another episode of Sam Sessions. We're back here in the acoustic A-room of South Austin Music. You got the world's worst interviewer right here in this chair. And to my left, a good friend of the shop. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right.
Jeff Plankenhorn. How long have you been playing for?
Oh, jeez. Let's see. I sang in church first, but I think I picked up my first guitar around 10.
Around 10.
I should be much better than I am. If I've played for... I'm not fishing, but I mean, if you really think about like 38 years of guitar playing, yeah, I should be a lot better.
You know, it's funny because I talk to a lot of people that have been playing for like 30, 40 years, and not a single one of them has ever said like, yeah, I'm pretty good. I have never
I don't think I
heard
suck.
Yeah.
I think I'm competent. I think I'm solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like you pretty much play any string instrument on the planet.
I wouldn't be that guy, man. No, I have a number of things that I play, but there's a number that I don't. I won't touch anything with a bow.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a bow guy. I did when I was playing with a guy, and he asked me to learn how to play pedal steel. And I said, well, I don't have a pedal steel. He said, oh, just try for me. Just these 2 songs. He's like, only 2 songs on my album that have pedal steel. And he had a 73 Showbud in front of me. And when I picked that up and I learned those 2 songs and I started playing pedal steel, I was like, okay, no more instruments. That lasted for a while. There was like a good 5 years where I didn't pick anything else up. Right now I'm kind of into chromatic harmonica. Because I'm a giant Stevie Wonder fan.
Right.
Like, ridiculous. Like, I have everything. I have every mono single. I have everything. And I know he's had some cheesy times and stuff, but I didn't say that. I just called to say I love you. A lot of people can't get to that, or Part-Time Lover, which I actually love that song. But the whole chromatic harmonica thing is so expressive, and I have this crazy love for it from my youth. Mm-hmm. And so my wife bought me one a couple of years ago, and I've been woodshedding on it. I usually play melodica instead, the face piano.
Yeah.
And I'll play the melodica because it kind of sounds like a chromatic harmonica.
Yeah.
And I can play all those Stevie licks, and it's not so hard. It's just like a small keyboard.
Okay.
But in the 2 years since I've had the chromatic harmonica, I can't practice at home because our dog Alice howls the second the harmonica comes out.
He's just trying to sing along with you.
She's just there. And it's kind of weird, man. Like, if I play soft, she sings soft. If I go loud, she's like, ah.
That's hilarious. What is it? Is it a husky or what kind of dog?
No, man. She's a mutt. She's from... It's so funny. You always hear about these rescue dogs from Gonzales. I don't know what you're doing in Gonzales, people, but you got to start taking care of your dogs. There's too many dogs coming out of Gonzales. It's true.
Calling them out.
I'm calling them out, man. Seriously. But I'm happy because we got this little dog. Yeah. So we had 2 dogs at the time. One was a little Corgi Terrier. Mm-hmm. And so, he's like the loaf of bread with legs that would just waddle around, you know what I mean? It was the best. That was my dog. That was the dog that picked me from Austin Pets Live over on Congress.
I got mine from there too.
Right? Well, Safe Refuge of Texas was the dog. My wife calls me and she's like, I think I've got Oscar's playmate. And I said, really? Okay, great. And then I showed up at the store. I think it was this Tomlinson's down here or something that, and they had this dog. And I'm looking around, and she's like, it's this one. And I was like, that one? And she's like this tiny little miniature schnauzer with just these chicken bones for legs, And I was like, huh. And man, my wife was just, I should have listened to her right off the bat. She was right. That's the most unconditional love I've ever gotten out of a dog, even.
Yeah.
From this gal. And
The wife always knows best is one of those things.
I mean, you know what? We can't say always. We can't. Should we say always to be in we should say always to, to
happy wife, happy life.
Sure, all that, but I mean, like, but yeah, most of the time.
She called that one right, for sure. Yeah.
In matters of the heart, in matters of the house.
Yeah.
Like if my wife is like, okay, we need to do this over here, I'm like, oh yeah, you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stay all the way out.
Yeah,
I hear you. Yeah. So, was guitar your first string instrument you started playing then?
I did play a little bit of piano.
First?
Yeah, I took some piano lessons, and I was kind of a jerk with my piano teacher. I had a really good ear, and so I didn't think, I was stubborn and didn't want to learn how to read music. I did later.
Yeah.
But she'd come in and she'd say, oh, that sounds great. And then she'd walk around the piano and I'd have the music turned this way just to like mess with her. Be like, see, I don't need to learn. And I was
not
just
stubborn at all.
I was kind of rude.
Yeah.
So she kicked me out.
No way.
Yeah. And like my mom was like, she can't deal with you anymore. And I was like, really? And I was like, and I looked back on it and I was like, well, that's kind of weird because, I showed some promise, but she just didn't want to deal with a problem child.
The attitude.
Yeah.
I can't believe you got kicked out of your first piano lessons.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was within 2 months I was given the boot. I took piano back up again when I was in college. I did a couple of years at the University of Michigan in the music program. But I was just like, I was playing in so many bands. I had like a 12-piece funk band, and I was playing in the jazz band, playing guitar, and I was learning classical, and then I had like a newgrass band where I was playing dobro, and it was like anything I could get my fingers on in college was what I was excited about, and I just wanted to work all the time, and then by the second year, after the second year, I dropped out. So
yeah. So were you doing anything besides music in that time in particular?
Man,
Because it seems like it was pretty much just all bands and practice.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to do a couple other classes, and like when I was in high school and stuff, man, I did pretty decent with grades and all my varying subjects.
I was gonna ask, did you get kicked out?
But something about college, I don't know if it was the experimentation or what it was, but something made me just completely just mad driven to learn as much as I could about music, for better or for worse.
Could you put your finger on it? What it was?
The feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a real sucker for, man, I hope it comes out kind of cheesy. I hope it doesn't come out kind of cheesy, but I'm a real sucker for connection with music.
Yeah.
Like, I recently turned my newsletter into like a little bit of a blog. And I was just trying to shake things up, and I missed creative writing. And the first essay, or maybe the second essay I wrote for it, was about how, I don't know if other musicians feel this way, but for me, the feeling that I have on a really, really big stage in front of a big audience when I have a kick-ass show is almost exactly the same feeling as when I'm in the audience at a kick-ass show.
Interesting.
And it's so close to being the same lose yourself feeling that it just kind of tells you, well, it's not about me.
Yeah. That's awesome. Because I was going to say, when you're talking about a connection to music, and I don't think it's cheesy at all, but coming from someone who doesn't play and doesn't have any kind of rhythm, and I mean, I think I can do like 3 chords like halfway, I still feel a major connection to it, especially, when I'm listening to it in the car. A certain song can make me feel one way when another makes me feel like the complete opposite.
And you remember them as the soundtrack of your life, and you remember certain times this was playing, this made me feel this way, I broke up with this person, blah, 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 all that stuff.
I remember one time I heard a song I hadn't heard since elementary school, and I could taste the hot chocolate I used to drink in the morning.
Palpable, right? I find that just to be a wonderful thing about what we do, and I'm lucky I can't. I'm lucky I can't do anything else. Because I really can't.
Yeah, just happy with the music.
I mean, I really can't. I mean, I've been tested, with pandemic and with lockdown and stuff like that, and seeing a lot of people I know having to leave the music industry and do other things, which is tough. But I really looked into some things and found out, there's nothing else.
You're stuck with the music.
Yeah, I'm a lifer.
Well, with the chromatic harmonica, have you incorporated that when you play on stage yet?
No, you know what's, man? I took it to one show because I didn't have my melodica, and I kind of failed.
Okay.
I kind of bombed. And it's funny because I asked, it was at the Post in Fort Worth, which is a listening room, and I had an audience that was very receptive to what I do, and that's a double-edged sword, especially in Austin, which we could talk about sometime if you're ever interested.
I would love to.
The double-edged sword of having an audience that's there that already loves what you do. So are they really going to be honest with me about how the chromatic harmonica sounded?
Right.
I'm not sure they're really going to be. They're going to be like, oh, it was great.
Yeah.
You know.
Just diehard fans.
No, I wasn't ready.
Love whatever.
I wasn't ready. I'm also bringing out the piano for a lot of stuff right now because I spent a ton of time during the pandemic writing on piano, and I'm a big Leon Russell fan, and I'm becoming a big Elton John fan. And
interesting.
Man, it was in the soundtrack of my life, like I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that. And so I started looking for fun things to learn on piano to influence my writing on piano. And I was like, this song is great.
What's your go-to Elton John song?
I'm Still Standing.
I'm Still Standing?
Which is so pop, not what you would expect. I love how the verses are in major, the choruses are in minor. There's not a lot to the lyrics as far as depth. It really isn't, and he's a guy who can write really, really deep lyrics.
Right, like Rocket Man.
Yeah,
I would imagine that's pretty.
Yeah, Hello Yellow Brick, or the Yellow Brick Road thing, and all of these things are just so fantastic and really beautiful, eloquent. And I'm Still Standing is kind of it's a big middle finger to somebody, and saying, no, I'm gonna be just fine, and I kind of came out of the pandemic and I kind of created this kind of punk hip hop version of it, because when we played it last night at the Saxon with the Resentments, I turned to our drummer John Chipman, I was like, here's a beat, and I'll beatbox to him sometimes. I'm horrible at that, but I will do it just so he plays a beat.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to play it the way Elton John played it, because what's the point? I should do my own thing if I'm going to do a cover.
Put your own spin on it.
Do something different if you're going to do a cover.
Yeah.
Or play it really, really good. If you're going to do it the same way it is on the album,
do it the same way it is on the album.
You better nail it. I like to personally take the tack of trying to put my own stamp if I actually do a cover.
Gotcha.
So it's great. And then I started going, dun, 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 and everybody's like, oh, he's going to do that, And it was really, really great because I'd never played it with the band or anybody like that. And when I got to the chorus and I said, I'm still standing, I just kind of looked at the audience like this, and they all went, yeah,
That's got to be the best feeling.
It's good.
That's got to be good.
And I spent so many years kind of working on, I am going to play my own songs, and I'm getting my own songs on the radio, and I'm going to do this, and I've been a sideman, so I'm really nervous about this, but I got to get out there in front and do my own thing. And then, so I wouldn't play covers as much. Yeah. Because I wanted to prove myself as a writer. And it's like, okay, well, now I got stuff on the radio, at least in Americana world. And I throw it a cover when I want to, and people get to hear what my influences are. Yeah, that's a good way to show it, rather than some lame ass interviewer being like, "What are your influences?" You know what, man? I like your self-deprecation. You want to get a good laugh out of that? You can call it self-defecation. Self-defecation. Man, I'm in on this guy. He's a self-defecating humorist. It's unfortunately more true than you'd imagine. We don't have to get into it. Okay, so excuse my ignorance here. Melodica. Can you explain that a little bit? Sure. You've seen it before. It looks like a little tiny piano. Probably, people my age would go, "Oh, the Hooters," because there was this band called the Hooters. I'm thinking of a restaurant. And they would go, and this guy would play this thing, and you blow into it. So it's a wind instrument, but it has a literal keyboard on it. Wow. And man, you can get a decent one for less than $150. Really? There you go. There's a melodica. I think we've had one of those. We have one of them. And you see John Baptiste. John Baptiste of he's on Colbert and all those kind of things. Okay. wow, what a musician. Piano like freakishly, just amazingly good. Always has killer bands, works with all these great musicians. But I think I bet if I met him, he'd say, the reason I picked up melodica is Stevie Wonder. I bet
really?
Anything. Because when he plays it, I hear him doing Stevie phrases and licks and stuff that, yeah. But the chromatic harmonica is crazy because you play like a normal major scale, and there's a button on the side, and it raises everything a half step, whether you're blowing in or out.
Oh, so more versatility?
I mean, basically, you could play in any key.
Okay.
You can't bend notes as much on every key, but it's way more versatile than just your typical blues harp.
Yeah.
Which I'm fair to middling at that too. I'm no little Walter.
I haven't been able to see someone who's like really, really good at harmonica play yet, and I'm waiting for the day.
It's hard.
I can imagine.
Here's the thing, like usually when you're on stage and somebody comes up, there's two things. One is if you see them come and they have like a harmonica belt, that's trouble.
Really?
Yeah, that's trouble.
Okay.
You most likely do not want that person coming to your stage. It's rare.
Okay.
But the other one is if they come up and they go, "You play anything in A?" That means they want to play harmonica with you and that they're probably not very good.
Okay.
And they only have an A harmonica.
This comes from experience.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm being harsh to the harmonica players out there. Yeah. For the great harmonica players in this town, Michael Rubin is a master. Ben Balmer, who's sadly moving, but he can play straight harp, he can play cross harp, he can play chromatic harp, and you want him.
Yeah. Want to hear him.
You want him to come and sit in. You want those guys to come and sit in on your songs. Guy Forsyth. He's got to be on that mural.
I bet he probably is because that's a name I'm more familiar with.
Yeah, Guy is one of the best harp players too. I can't believe he wouldn't be on there. He would have to be. I swear he is. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Harmonica is. There's a lot of bad ones. It's too easy to sound fair. And hard to sound good. Yeah,
I heard the same thing when we got to interview Shaky Graves a couple weeks ago. He basically said the same thing. He plays a little harmonica, but he said he put it down because he's like, don't do it unless you're really good. Yeah. You kind of got to be top tier if you want to pull it off. It sounds
I agree. It's easy to sound very mediocre on a harmonica.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people start with when you're first starting with guitar. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're good.
They'll say, "Is bass easier than guitar?" And it's always like, no. It's easier to get a sound out. It's easier than figuring out how to move all your fingers at once.
Right.
Is it easier to learn really good time? Because bass players' time got to be a lot better than a guitar player's. Okay. Is it easier? No. So there's all this other level of things that a bass player has to do that they just think, oh, bass has got to be easier. It's 4 strings. Yeah. No.
Yeah, and more space.
There's a lot more going on than just that.
Yeah, I mean they're generally like the backbone.
Yeah, right? You know what's funny is my late friend who just passed a few months back, Yogi Musgrove.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was rough. But he used to say, he was like, drummer doesn't keep time. I keep time. And I'd be like, yeah, that's true. And I remember one time we were playing at Momo's, and he was kind of rough. I would bring in a drummer that he didn't know to come fill in on a gig. And he was yelling. He wouldn't care if I told this story because I've told it a million times. Yeah. And the drummer was a little bit off. And Yogi was sitting behind me going, 1! 1! 1! And after the show, the poor drummer, I felt so bad. The poor drummer, I swear he was crying during the show. And I came up after him and I said, Yogi, I really appreciate how much you care. I was like, this guy's subbing. He's doing it for not a lot of money. And this is Momo's on like a Wednesday night. This is not like the Carnegie Hall. And he's like, he's disrespecting your music. I loved him so much. Oh, man. He was such a great mentor. He was the guy that I would call to regarding like business and how to I've been really lucky over the years, the people that I've played with and the people I've been lucky enough to have back me up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a problem when people say he's in my band. It's like, in Austin, usually people are in a lot of bands.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really your band.
Yeah.
So Yogi was, I was lucky enough to have him play on a couple records and a lot of shows.
Yeah.
And man, did he teach me a lot.
That's good, man.
A lot about music and a lot about life.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear it, but it's so nice that you still, carry those experiences, and it's not something that will ever be forgotten, you know?
And I could tell a story and make people laugh, too, about Yogi, because, man, he was a character. And
yeah, he sounds like it. Serious about his craft.
Yeah, really, really, really serious about the craft of playing music.
It's a respectable characteristic, Yeah. Yeah, not everybody's like that.
He's really, really quiet, too, and didn't show a lot of facial expression.
Uh-huh.
It's funny, because we had one guy in the band who was really, really, like, kind of vocal on stage and showed off, and, like, off stage, he was kind of like, a shut-in, and kind of, like, a little on the depressive side, but he was that way, and Yogi was this way, but, like, Yogi was really into, like, kids' movies and animated movies.
Yeah.
Like, one time I was playing, and I went up to give him his check after the show, and he was sitting in his Suburban with his phone like this. I said, Yogi. He said, yeah. I was like, is that the Lion King? He's like, Hakuna Matata. And he's just looking. Man, we both loved Minions too. We both had Minions. He could not get enough of Minions. And he's just such a big menacing guy.
The Despicable Me Minions.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, both of us, man.
That's incredible.
Always laughing about stuff like that.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, and if you don't want to stay on, a subject like this any longer, that's totally fine. But since you're talking about, your late friend, I was also curious. I know that you spent some time with Jimmy LaFave as well, right?
I did. I spent a lot of time with Jimmy LaFave. I didn't play in his band. I played on a couple of his records. Mm-hmm. And for the longest time, the first time we really spent time together, he invited me to play on this thing called the Ribbon of Highway Endless Skyway Tour, where he got all these different musicians to go out and play the songs of Woody Guthrie. Mm-hmm. And we toured around playing Woody Guthrie songs, and there was like all this. He got this guy named Bob Childers, who's also not with us anymore, who would narrate and tell Woody stories and talk about Woody Guthrie and stuff like that. And I was the multi-bag guy. Mm-hmm. I brought a dobro and a mandolin and a guitar, and I would back up whoever, like Eliza Gilkison and Ellis Paul and Slade Cleaves, and they would all do songs of Woody. Jimmy was another one who was like really, really quiet on stage. Mm. Never shut up when he got off. And I mean for fun. Mm-hmm. Like he was social. He was talkative. Mm-hmm. He was always telling really long, possibly bad jokes, but I'd laugh anyway because he had great timing. I mean, he would tell a long joke and then he'd finally... and he'd also be like, yeah, he's that guy who's like, he's kind of egging you on and stuff. And I still have messages in my phone from Jimmy when he first got sick, and I keep them. Him and Sarah Elizabeth Campbell. I've got a few people that I can't get out of my voicemail.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm like, I just need to remember those people.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm so happy that you're able to share those experiences with those people, sure, I mean, of course, I get to enjoy their music and the stories I hear from other people. And I probably got to talk to Jimmy a couple of times when I was a bit younger, but just not old enough to, really recognize. So it's amazing to be able to hear those kind of stories from people like you, who can carry it on. I think that's a good thing. I
thought of something that you were saying earlier. I really tend to ask non-musicians more about music.
Interesting.
Because the thing is, when you ask a guitar player or a songwriter, or they give their opinion, like, well, why did you use a diminished 7 chord there? Okay, well, who cares? Okay, because I thought it sounded good. Yeah. And there's this whole thing that's been sort of corrupted by the business and by The theory, which is great. Theory's great. You learn theory, it's like vocabulary. It's like, I'm not sitting here going noun, verb, adjective.
Yeah.
Right? I lost that. Now I just speak. Same thing with music theory for guitar. If you want to learn theory for guitar or any instrument, you learn the language and then you speak.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Wow.
But when I talk to someone who's a quote unquote layperson, almost always, I was just saying this in another interview I was in recently, but I like it a lot. If somebody says to me, now I don't know anything about music, but it's almost always going to be a good thing they're telling me. Like, it's almost always going to be insightful. It's almost always like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like they'll mention something that really meant something to them in lyrics that reminded them of something. Or they'll be like, I don't understand, when you play the solo on such and such a song, it really, like, it just goes right through my chest.
Yeah.
One time, a kid went up to the great drummer Brandon Temple, and he said, I hear God in your cymbals.
Wow.
And it was like, I mean, if you know Brandon, like, he's just beyond. He's a very beyond kind of player.
Yeah.
You know. And I wouldn't take something like that, what the kid said, lightly.
Right.
But he had told me that, and I was like, yeah, man, that's heavy.
Yeah.
That's heavy. But I like lay people, quote unquote, or even enthusiasts. You know, people who haven't really been corrupted by doing it all day, every day for 38 years.
Yeah.
They have a different take on things.
The simplicity of it can kind of show you a little bit.
Yeah, we need their opinion. As much as we need them, too, because it's
I was going to say,
musician these days.
Yeah, that's the majority of people that are, driving the whole industry behind it.
We need them.
Yeah.
Everybody can't play. I mean, they can, which is great. I used to say, man, I wish everybody played guitar. Now pretty much everybody plays something.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you look online. And
especially after the lockdowns, everyone had to pick up something.
And people will say to me, yeah, but they're not any good. And I'm like, no, there's actually a lot of really, really, really good ones. Like, if you look on TikTok or you look on Instagram and stuff, people will be like, oh, they suck. I'm like, no, they don't.
So you've been on TikTok?
Oh, of course.
Hell yeah, man. That's cool. That's cool. Okay, so that's the other thing I wanted to bring up. And we'll have to go back at a certain point. But so you talk about TikTok. I saw you have a Patreon.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Patreon's one of my favorite things. I got talked into it a little bit late. And for those who don't know, it's basically fan to musician. Musician to fan. No middleman. No label. No promotion. No nothing. And everybody kind of develops their own Patreon page. And do their own thing with it. And you start out and you subscribe. Like maybe you start out and you pay me, you give $3 a month, and that means every month you're going to get one new song from me.
Okay.
Maybe I did a song with young Jack Barksdale that's kind of like a folky thing. Maybe I tried out Lang Freeman to see what he would do with a production of this cover that I did of a Taylor Swift song.
Right.
Maybe I used a drummer in Marfa and me in Canada and Scrappy Judd Newcomb, and we recorded this kind of New Orleans funk tune. Every month I get to try something different.
Yeah.
And I use the small amount of money. I don't get a ton of money from it. But the small amount of money I get from my 112 subscribers, I put back into music.
Yeah.
And I'll also do like behind the scenes things. I'll write. If people want to learn how to play certain songs, I'll do a video lesson. I'll do special live streams and an occasional interview.
Okay.
And honestly, I love it. Like, it's a lot of work, but the people who are on there, I know they're my diehard fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
They are there. They're following everything I do, and
they want to hear it all.
Yeah, and they want to hear the song before it comes out, and they get to.
So who turned you on to Patreon? Was it something you came up with on your own?
Oh, no. You know what's funny is John Pointer was the first person who told me about it when it first started, and I was anti. I was like, I wasn't mad at him or anything. I was like, no, man, that's cool. You do your thing. But it felt weird.
Yeah.
I was like, does this feel like, I thought it was more like asking people for money and not giving them anything.
Yeah.
And what it's become now is more like those who are interested who want to support my career.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of tough out there.
Well, and it's cool to have that, like, closer interaction with the people that you know are, like you said, diehard fans. You know, it gives them a closer look. Yeah.
The commenting on songs gives me an idea of, you know, like certain songs I'd put on there and say, well, you know, four of the songs that were put on there over the course of 2 years became my second EP.
Mm.
And what happened was, from the stuff that people liked, what ended up coming out of it was this EP of sort of like re-envisioning the jug band.
Mm-hmm.
It's like percussion, all acoustic instruments, but pretty rockin' stuff.
Okay.
And that's what ended up coming out of it. And I don't think that would have ended up happening if I wasn't doing that and if I wasn't in touch with what they were digging.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just cool to see, because I it's either very rare or just unheard of for me so far to talk to, you know, a musician who's a working musician but has stuff on Patreon too.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I think it's the coolest thing. And
do you tell any of your peers about it and like
yeah.
kind of encourage them to get on it as well?
I do, and I also do a thing where I do a follow back thing. Like if I dig you on Patreon, I'll follow you anyways and ask for a follow back, because then we can comment on each other's stuff and kind of be in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard as a musician to know what's going on in the scene. It's so hard. I was just talking to somebody at lunch about man, I never get to see shows.
Yeah.
And now the lockdowns are coming to an end, hopefully, and we're out playing shows again. And it's like, no, I'm working every night.
Yeah.
So I can't go to a show. I gotta work.
Uh-huh.
You know, and even if it's not every night, on those 3 days a week where I might not have a gig, I'm in the studio for 8 hours.
Okay.
You know, or I'm hustling some other way.
Right.
So it's pretty rare. It's cool on Patreon to follow. I follow Kevin Russell, Shiny Ribs.
Okay. He's
got a great Patreon. I follow Guy Forsyth, Jamie Harris, the South Austin Moonlighters.
Nice.
There's a bunch of people I follow on Patreon in hopes that some of my people will find them, and maybe if I'm lucky, some of their people will find me.
You. Yeah. Going back a bit, you're not from Austin, are you?
No, I was born in Ohio and lived there until I was like, I think 10 or 12. Then I went to Michigan, and I stayed in Michigan for high school and college. Then I went to Nashville. Then I came to Texas.
So Nashville to Austin.
Basically.
What was the switch like?
Well, the impetus was I felt pigeonholed. I'm not an anti-Nashville guy by any stretch. I have fun when I go.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that gets done there because they have the machine.
Uh-huh.
As does LA, as does New York, as does Vancouver, I'm finding out. and Toronto, now that I do a lot more in Canada.
I was going to ask about that as well.
But Nashville, for me, was you are a dobro bluegrass guy.
That's it.
Nobody wanted to hear about anything else. And if you're not going to do that, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
When I moved here, oh, you're playing with him? Well, why don't you also play with him? Oh, you're doing this? We'll play with her. And I'm playing with Ruthie Foster, and I'm playing with Ray Wiley Hubbard and Slade Cleaves and Willis Allen Ramsey, and they're all just like calling me for gigs. Like, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
You know?
That's awesome.
Not to be the
ridiculous
name dropper that I am.
But that's cool. That's pretty cool.
But you know, they were the people who were calling, and you just show up with a dobro, and people say, oh, well, how did you get those gigs? And it's like, well, I listened to the words, and I didn't play over them.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much just like when you become a side person, one of the first things you want to learn is to fit in the nooks and crannies, and you're there to make the other artist sound better. You're not there to show off what a great dobro player you are.
Yeah, I think David Grissom said he was like, if you want to let everyone know that you're a complete rookie, play over someone else's solo.
That's so Grissom and so right.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who you want him to play over everyone. Yeah. I like another friend of the store, Danny Barnes.
Oh, yeah.
Danny has this. Everybody in this room and everybody who's watching right now needs to go to, maybe we'll put a link in the comments or something.
Sweet, yeah.
He wrote something, I want to say almost 20 years ago. And it's Rules for Being a Sideman. And it's an entire page of things that if you gotta see it, man, because not only is it brilliant, It's really funny.
He's hilarious.
Yeah, so it's very insightful as to all the things that nobody teaches you that you figure out from being on the road as to how to be a good side person. And nobody's ever put it together like that. And maybe they have, but I never saw it. But I remember reading it and laughing my ass off. But also being like, oh, he's right. Oh, he's right about that. How to be in a van. How to, be in a road, what checkout time really means, being on time. But the very, very first rule, I'm going to misquote it, but I love it so much.
What is it?
Okay, so you're at a show and you're having the question as to whether or not you're a side person. Walk out to the front of the venue. Look up at the marquee. Is your name on the marquee? If not, you're a side man. So good. So good.
Is there a lot of people that would get asked that question and be like, well, not necessarily, I've been with them for a long time, and I know them super well.
I'll tell you, it was really, really, really incredibly hard for me to break out of being a sideman. I'm luckily at the point now where most of the people who follow me, who listen to my music, don't know I ever was. Because my solo career is only like 6 years old. But I've really just gone, okay, I don't side anymore. It's very rare I'll play with somebody else.
Yeah.
But if it was a DJ or management or booking or somebody in town and it was South by and they were introducing me, this is Plank, he plays with so-and-so.
Yeah.
This is Plank, he's a sideman for blah, 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 blah. Even after I had stopped. So it's a really hard thing to get out of.
Interesting.
Really hard because they see you as that and you're that forever.
Right.
So that's been really difficult. So I kind of understand why it's tough, but it was really always pretty easy for me. It was like, well, she's paying my check. It's her name on my check. Like, it's not about me showing my little noodles. That's not what people are here to see. They're here to listen to Ruthie Foster sing, or to listen to Liza Gilkison sing, or to listen to whoever, and hopefully, now, and what's crazy is, I would come and sit in sort of post-lockdown, and I would play in like a song swap where there was like a band, and so everybody would play on each other's tunes. I fell back into it. I fell back into nervously playing too much.
Interesting.
And at the end of this first show, I'm walking around to like Rich Brotherton and Guy Forsyth going, man, I'm sorry, like I was Bush League. I was playing too much because I didn't know the song. Yeah. And they're like, no, you were fine. And I was like, no, I know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I was playing too much. I fell right back into my old habits that,
but it came out of nerves. It came out of
me, and it came out of also me wanting to do well.
Right.
But instead of wanting to do well and playing succinctly and backing them up well,
just too much.
I was like, nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah, it's
they really don't.
Yeah.
Unless you're Eric Johnson or unless you're David Grissom and like your thing is masterful guitar playing. My thing was backing up people and not playing too much.
Yeah, it's necessary to have those experiences though to like kind of got to get retaught sometimes.
Yeah, man. Well, there's nothing like getting knocked down a peg, and there's nothing like getting humbled. It helps.
Oh, big time.
It helps. What did I hear recently? Something about how, if you don't ever really, really fail, then you don't get this chance to learn from it and stuff. That's not even remotely as eloquent as what was said.
It's like me when I try to quote anything.
Yeah, you gotta mess up, basically. If you're gonna learn anything, you gotta mess up a lot.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, speaking of name dropping, Ray Wiley Hubbard got you to move to Austin. Is that right? Yeah. That's what I've been hearing.
Yeah.
He kind of encouraged the move?
Yeah, and I should say this. Ray encouraged a lot of people and helped a lot of people. I think that maybe when I used to tell the story because it was fun, and there's a lot of funny little anecdotes about it.
Yeah.
Maybe I made it sound like I was just like the only guy who's ever done that for it. And believe me, him and Judy and now Lucas have helped a lot of musicians.
Yeah.
Okay. My experience was I met him at Folk Alliance in Memphis, and this buddy of mine from Michigan, he's walking up the street with a writer friend of mine from Detroit, the guy who helped him write his book, Tom Jurek. I was like, oh, just wait a second, I might get to meet Ray, because I just heard his music. I was like, man, it's great. Mm-hmm. So he walks up, Tom Jurek goes, hey, man, this is Plank. He plays dobro, great. And Ray goes, you want to play a gig tonight?
That is a very good impression of his
22 years, so 24 years.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, and he goes, well, no, rehearsal is highly overrated, but if you want, I'll come sit in with your friend, and if I like it, then we'll go up to my room and rehearse a little bit and play a show.
Yeah.
So he comes and sees me with his friend. He says, okay, come up to my room. I go up to his room, and we play Ballad of the Crimson Kings, Without Love, and When She Sang Amazing Grace, and he goes, see you at 8.
Nah.
When's the last time I ever rehearsed with Ray Wiley Hubbard for anything, because we don't rehearse.
Yeah.
You show up and you play, and if you can't do that, then you don't get the gig.
Interesting.
2 years later, after I had been in Nashville, Ray was like, man, I came down with a buddy to play some gigs, and Ray stole me for some gigs. He said, if you want to come down, you can come stay with me and Judy for a bit.
Yeah.
So I drove down to Texas with $100, a Geo Prism, which is a car that you don't want to think about driving on the highway, and maybe 2 guitars. And I lived with Ray and Judy and Lucas. Lucas was like 6 or 7.
Whoa.
And he was already a character.
Yeah.
That kid had a lot of soul when he was a kid.
Damn.
I mean, it's crazy. He would just say stuff, and you'd be like, what? What?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He was very soulful and very insightful at a young age. But yeah, and
so
then,
you lived with them.
Yeah, I mean, well, they let me stay at their house for
right.
a month or two. I used to take the garbage all the way down, because he had a gate, and he lives in this place in Wimberley.
Yeah.
And Judy was like, you just gotta take the garbage down. And then after a couple of months, she's like, yeah, that's not gonna cut it anymore. You need to go find a place. I was like, okay.
Fair enough.
I found a little shack to rent in Wimberley while I was getting stuff done.
Yeah.
But everybody I play with, everybody that I played with in like the 15 years that I was a side person,
yeah,
every one of them is 1 degree of separation from Ray.
Yeah, that's
cool. Like I remember
cool.
playing at KGSR, and Bob Schneider comes to the show, and he comes up to Ray, and he's like, can I ask Jeff to play with me? And Ray's like, oh yeah. And he's like, Bob's gonna call you. He's like, you're gonna be tattooed and playing pedal steel in a year. You're gonna have a shaved head. It's like, I ended up with a tattoo. But
you got the one tattoo.
That was a lot later, though.
That's interesting. I'm curious. I wonder if, like, because you're very established in your solo career now, and you've been seeing some success. But I wonder if
it's
a lot
a
of
hustle.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and a lot of times people kind of focus when they're going through the journey on the end goal, which I'm sure this kind of feels like this is where you wanted to be, and the journey may have been, being the sideman for a lot of different people.
Yeah.
I wonder if you ever miss kind of the journey that you went through to get to where you are now.
Man, no way. And the reason is because there's so much smoke and mirrors to what we do. Mm-hmm. I mean, you hear that phrase a lot these days, but I'm kind of glad.
Right.
Because what you see on Instagram.
Oh my gosh.
It's not life.
I hate Instagram.
It's not. Those things aren't life. You know, none of them. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's this projection of what your audience kind of needs to see, or what you think is going to get people to shows. And I don't want to say it's phony, but it's not always an accurate representation because my fans don't want to hear about the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Not all the time, and certainly not as much as it happens.
Right.
You go to a club and, oh man, 13 people showed up. Well, somebody messed up, or nobody knows who the heck I am here. Yeah. Which is nobody's fault. I just haven't played there,
Yeah.
So, they don't need to hear about the transmission dropping on my car last week or whatever, know. So it is a lot of smoke and mirrors. I have young musicians say, oh, man, I just want to get to where you are. I just want to get to the point where, like, I play music for a living and it's my music and people come and hear me. And I'm like, careful what you wish for. You better set your sights just a little higher than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you can do it. You know, but it might be really, really good to take a business management course. It really might. I really should have done that. And it might be good, to always have a side hustle. I can't tell you. I don't know any musicians right now that don't have a book, or they do drawings, or they paint, or they make jewelry, or they this, or they that. Because all of the money that we used to make selling CDs is gone.
Yeah.
It's gone, and like when somebody comes up and they buy a CD, it's like, thanks, I enjoyed your show.
Right.
This kid comes up to me at the Saxon one night after my show. It was the best thing ever. It was the best. And he's like, hold my CD, and he's like, man, I loved your set. And I'm grabbing my guitar, I'm getting ready to go. I was like, oh man, thanks. He's a young guy. I'm in with the young guys. And I was like, this is great. He's like, I bought your CD. I said, great. He goes, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I bought it. And I was just like, kind of felt like a personal victory in that moment, but it was the state that we're in now. So we used to, like the people I played with, they'd sell for about 2 months, and that would pay for their record.
Yeah.
And then everything else they made on those CD sales throughout the rest of the year would be gravy. And that'd be how they pay for the next record, or that's how they'd buy T-shirts. And now it's much more important to hawk merch and become a T-shirt salesman while you work, and because that money is gone.
Yeah, I hear you, but it is cool to see the musicians adapt.
You have to.
Yeah.
Those of us who are like, well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's kind
of weeding out the tourists too.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like, look, if you don't, it's probably a rude way to put it, but if that's gonna dissuade you from being a musician, well, I don't know, then you should do something else.
Yeah.
But as I've said before in this interview, I can't do anything else.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. So you're talking about playing at the Saxon with that kid coming up to you with the CD.
Yeah.
You got a birthday thing coming up?
I do. The 23rd, thank you for that. 23rd of April, 8 p.m. on a Saturday. Big birthday celebration.
What are you calling it?
Jeff Plankenhorn's 49th Earthly Apology. And
that is the best way to describe a birthday, man.
Thank you.
I love it.
And I've got a whole bunch of special guests.
Awesome.
And Carrie Hudson's gonna come sing with me, which is always great. A young guy who I really, really like is gonna come play keyboards named Mika Matenko.
Okay.
And he's pretty spectacular. And,
hell yeah.
And I'm bringing him on. Scrappy Jed Newcomb will be there, and he and I are about to embark on a Southeast tour.
That's right.
And the last time we did a Southeast tour, we called it the Folk Defiance Tour because we were going to Folk Alliance, and we did it just kind of duo swapping songs. And we're doing it again because it was right before the lockdowns.
Yeah.
And so we're doing one kind of right after now, and we're doing the same thing. And Scrappy, we hadn't picked a tour name yet, and he's like, we're going to be up against the Eagles. And I said, I don't think that's going to mess with our market. And he said, yeah, but they're calling it the Hotel California 2022. And I said, okay, so? He's like, we should call ours Motel Alabama 2022. He's like, we'll probably get some press. And I was like, all right. So that tour is called Motel Alabama 2022, and we have we put together a little CD, an album's worth of like duo acoustic songs. And because people come up at the show, they're like, I want this, and you never have that.
Yeah.
And so like the old Resentments, when they would go to like Europe and stuff, they'd always make a new record.
Yeah.
Like it'd be like, do you have a new record? Oh yeah, I got a new record. Because they wouldn't want to miss out on the money of selling records. Of so like John D would like take a KUT set with John Ailey, package it up, here's my new record. And it'd be great because the fans would want that. They'd be like, well, I don't have anything that sounds like this. They're almost like Deadheads or Fishheads or Tapers or people like that. They want all of it. And they want deep cuts and different versions. So I told Scrappy, I was like, let's just cut it. Just 2 guitars in a room, what we do at a show.
That's awesome.
And we put 10 songs down, and it was funny because I was like, yeah, we could break out some old chestnuts. He goes, that's it. And I was like, what? And he's like, we're going to call it Chestnuts. And then 10 Fun Songs. So that's the name of the album.
Dude, that's incredible. That's incredible.
So what we're gonna do during the show is break it down in the middle of the set, because my show's pretty rockin' and a little bit loud and proud, and we like to get people moving.
Those are the fun ones.
In the middle, we're gonna break it down, and Scrappy and I'm gonna sit down with a couple acoustics and play a couple songs from that.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that'll be the first place where you can get it.
That's incredible. That's a really cool way to do it, man. I like it.
You got marketing genius.
In all seriousness, I was gonna say you have a bit of an innovative way of thinking.
Oh, well, that's nice to hear. Maybe that's all post pandemic or post lockdown anyway.
Yeah, you had a lot of thinking time.
Yeah, I had a lot of thinking time, and I have people helping me too who come up with these great ideas.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what you need. And okay, so real quickly, not to like rush through it or anything, but just kind of quickly. I know you have your own patented guitar. Patented. That's the one I'm looking for.
I mean, here's the thing. Long story short, for years people wanted me to play dobro in rock bands, and it just sounded like horrible.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't really they hadn't figured out the technology to amplify it. It's the one that's got the hubcap. Okay, and it's a speaker cone, and they were developed around the time of electric guitars because they wanted to make guitars louder, but what it really created was something that sounded different.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a unique sound. Like that's a biscuit cone right there over here on this guitar.
Yeah.
Whenever I would plug one in, I couldn't hear anything, and it was just awful. I played my first Austin Music Awards the year Ray Wiley won Song of the Year for Conversation with the Devil, and I'm on stage with all these people. I played by Braille the whole night. I didn't hear a thing. So I went to a luthier and I said, here's what I want you to do. I said, make me I was like square neck like a dobro, because you play it on your lap. You don't play it like this.
Yeah.
You play it more like a steel. And I was like body shaped like a dobro, like lap steel neck, dobro body, electric guitar parts. Basically, people used to always ask me to play dobro in rock bands, and I could never get it to sound right because they didn't have the amplification of that acoustic instrument right yet. It was very difficult to get it at a high volume at a big show because it's got a resonator cone and it's kind of like a speaker, and it just sounded awful. So I went to a luthier named Tony Nobles.
Yeah,
Tony.
Tony made the first plank, and I said I want a lap steel neck, and I want the body of a dobro so that I can stand up and play.
Yeah.
And not because I want to jump around stage, but just because, it's just I'm comfortable playing dobro that way. And I want electric guitar parts, and so there's a couple of pickups kind of like a Les Paul, but I also wanted it chambered on the sides. Kind of like a 335 or a Gretsch, because then it just kind of resonates a little bit more, just a little bit more, so it's semi-hollow, and I can work the feedback if I want to. And I was really heavily influenced not just by bluegrass, but by everybody who's in the sacred steel tradition. Yeah. And sacred steel being like everybody before Robert Randolph, where these two churches, mainly the House of God and Keith Dominion, they were in Florida and they were in upstate New York, and they played only gospel music, and the lead instrument was a pedal steel with distortion and wah-wah.
Whoa.
And I'm telling you, if you go and you check this stuff out, you will have your mind poofed. Yeah. Because what happened is these guys started with a guy named Willie Eason, and as far as I know, the lineage of it anyway. Yeah. And I was playing a festival in California with Ray Wiley, and the Campbell brothers were either before or after us, and they sat in, and they got on stage and they started playing, and there was two steel guitars, and there was no bass, and the guitar was just playing rhythm, and one of the guitars was thumping the bass line. We were talking about that when we were talking about tunings, because it had it in a fifth or a fourth, so you could thump the bass. It sounded like a P bass. Yeah. And they were taking these solos with massive amounts of distortion and wah-wah pedals, and it was so expressive and so vocal, and I wanted to merge those two worlds together, and that's what the plank guitar was all about, so that I could just take my dobro / lap steel and stand up and be able to put it through my pedal board and put it through my boogie amp.
Yeah.
Because the first time I took a pedal steel and I plugged it into a boogie and I put distortion and wah-wah on, I swear it lifted me across the room. It was like that scene in Back to the Future. It just flew. I flew across the room. I was so... when I heard these guys for the first time, the Campbell Brothers, I literally, like, 2 songs into the set, I walked over to the CD tent and I bought everything they had.
Man.
I was freaked out. I was like, this is what I've been trying to do. You know, this is what I've been trying to do that I can't. They're already doing it, and they've been doing it for years.
Right.
I've never been able to come up with something that sounds like them. It's a whole beautiful way of playing guitars.
It sounds extremely unique, though.
Yeah, but I did on the Soul Slide album of 2016, which was sort of my breakout. That's what it was all about. It was bringing these kind of worlds together.
Yeah.
So that's what the guitar was. If I ever find another good luthier, because frankly, you know, Tony's he's doing 8,000 other things, and he's so good at making, like, my guitar's not that hard to make.
Yeah.
You know, it's really not. But, man, luthiers are, like...
hard to come by.
Yeah.
Needles and haystacks.
Yeah, it's really hard to find a good luthier to make it, and so...
Yeah.
So Will Knack from Blue October plays one. Another guy who used to play with Wade Bowen.
There you go.
There's a bunch of people playing them.
That's incredible.
And it's really cool because they play them and they make them sound different than I ever would have thought. That's pretty hip too. Plus they named it after me. I didn't name it the Plank. Gurf and Ray Wiley called it that. They were like, it's a plank. You gotta call it the Plank.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right.
Why not, right? Yeah, that's interesting with all the other names you and your group have managed to come up with.
Yeah, Plank was like when I was a kid.
It works, yeah.
When your name's Plankenhorn, everybody wants to shorten it.
Yeah.
And when you have a jersey, you know, like you're playing football or something, you got the P here and you got the N here, you know, it's like they just call you Plank. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. That's awesome, man. Well, the next part, I'll ask you kind of just quick questions.
Sure.
You know, basically.
Rapid fire?
This or that, and you just pick the you know, one you would rather have.
Okay.
I guess you could say. So, like, piano or steel string?
Steel string.
That's a tough one, huh?
It's really tough for me.
Yeah.
Because piano is just like an orchestra.
Yeah.
You know, but steel string is, I'm more expressive on it.
I hear you. That's good. That's good.
I'm better at it.
Right.
Maybe, hopefully.
When you walk out of the house, are you dressing in style or comfort?
Comfort.
Comfort.
I'm built for comfort, not for speed.
There you go. Truck or car?
Car, although my wife is truck.
My
wife's a horticulturalist and a gardener, so I always have a truck, and I always will have a truck, because we always have a truck, but man, I gotta be on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Bright lighting or soft lighting?
Soft.
Yeah.
Has to be soft. I squint.
Uh-huh. I hear you.
I'm not a vampire. I like daytime just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I've, gotten sober.
Yeah.
After that, 10 years ago, I've started really enjoying the daytime a lot more.
That's good.
But I do squint a lot, so I'd say soft lighting is kind of mood lighting.
Yeah, I would agree. Would you rather play a big venue or a small one?
I feel like, first of all, the answer is small.
Okay.
I feel like once you can't see all the faces anymore, it becomes more about the show and less about the music.
Okay, and you rather it be more about the music?
I mean, even if I'm playing the Paramount, I can still kind of see everybody's face. Like if somebody makes an expression, that's a big joint.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
But I just feel like once you get to that point, what happens is once you get to that higher point, your show is really, really, really pre-planned.
Uh-huh.
You even know what jokes you're going to tell every night. You even know what solo you're going to play every night.
Yeah.
It's just not as organic.
Intimate.
And it's not as organic. It's not as I'm going to just decide to do another song tonight.
For sure.
Like the chances of you going and seeing, your favorite band at a stadium and them not doing the same set they played the night before are slim to none.
Yeah, okay.
I
hear you.
Because it just doesn't work that way once you get into the big business. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
So It's sad. I hate to burst people's bubble. It's the truth. It's all worked out.
Better they hear it now than later, I suppose.
There was a friend of mine who won't be mentioned, and he was playing with a band, and we were opening up, and we were doing stadiums. And we had a gig where they said we had a night off, so we played a gig with said opening band. So we got to stretch out, and we got to play a long set. And I came back, and I said to my buddy, who was the musical director for this huge band. He's like, how was the gig last night? I was like, oh man, it was nice to stretch out. He goes, huh, that'd be nice. And I was like, you have like this coveted gig that you just would die to get. And you got to play the same thing every night.
Jeez.
And I was just so sad for him.
Bittersweet, a little
sad.
bit. Is it? Yeah. Yeah, just
after the show, I'll tell you who it was.
Okay. Good stuff. Advil or ibuprofen?
Oh man, I don't know the difference.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've been lucky. I've been blessed with not a lot of headaches.
That's good.
Yeah, so I don't really take either much.
Okay. Bath or shower?
Oh, I love a bath.
Yeah.
I'm a pamper guy, man. Oh my God, I love being pampered. Yeah. If I go to a hotel and I walk in, I'm like, oh, look at that bathtub. Yeah, I'm gonna chill tonight after the show. I mean, I'll sit in there, man. I'll be doing my When Doves Cry, going back to the bed. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to see that picture, but I do really, really love.
Find it on his Patreon.
I love a good bath. Yeah, you might be able to find it. That'd be more like
OnlyFans.
Thanks for saying it. Not that I would know. Yeah,
Only Plank.
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's so good. Things the world never wants to see, and never did.
Oh, where did the nickname Plank come from, right?
Yeah, you know what's great too about Plank too is in England Plank means dumbass. And so like the first time I went over there, like all these English cats after the show, because my first album was called Plank.
Yeah.
And they're like, do they really call you that? And they're like, yeah. Because they have a saying that if you're as thick as two short planks, it means you're not very bright. And so you become a plank. Oh, that guy's a plank.
Oh.
You know? And I loved that.
Yeah.
Love that. Not to mention the trucker hats that I have that say plank. They're a giant rage with all of like the yoga and the HIIT community. They all buy, like I have yoga teachers buying this hat because they think I'm promoting planking. They don't even know my music, but they buy this hat.
That's a good hat.
I buy like 10.
That's a good hat. I saw my pops was wearing a shirt too.
Yeah, he had a plank shirt.
I tried to get him to let me take it, but.
Oh man, I'll hook you up.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
People, man, it's funny. I bartenders, people in music stores, sound guys. I went and played Green Hall the other day. The guy was wearing my Sleeping Dogs t-shirt. He's like, I don't know why people don't give me t-shirts. He's like, I know you're coming. I'll wear this shirt.
Yeah.
It's like, man, it's promotion.
Yeah.
If the gals at the Saxon are wearing my t-shirt, I sell more.
Oh yeah.
You know, somebody in a music store, they go, who's that?
Yeah.
It's like, I play on a weird guitar.
Big model.
I don't know, man. It's not going to cost me that much. It's like, you know, it's not. Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, of course.
It's worth it.
Man, this was such a pleasure to be able to sit down and talk to you.
It's fun for me too.
I got to learn a lot about you.
Good laughs.
Yeah, exactly. It was my first time meeting you, but I seriously hope it's not my last time talking to you.
Sure,
This was awesome. I think if we can keep you for a little bit longer and you play something for us, we would all love to hear it, man.
I'll think of something.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
All right.
This is a song written during the lockdowns with my friend Miles Zuniga and recorded with the Resentments. It's called Together Alone. I feel a cold wind rolling down the avenue, and it's blowing right through my bones. All the bars are closed down, it feels like a ghost town. Everybody's holed up at home. Each day's the same, I play the waiting game, just talking on telephone. If I can't be with you, this'll have to do. I guess we'll be together alone. And it feels like forever since we've been together. Until I can get back home, we'll be together alone. And I got 88 keys for company, and I got my old pawn shop guitar. I got my mandolin and some railroad gin, and I'm feeling like a rock and roll star. I got your photograph, I miss the way you laugh, I miss the way you yell and you moan. When I get back in town, we're gonna get on down. Till then we'll be together alone. And it feels like forever since we've been together. Until I can get back home, we'll be together alone. But I'm living in the twilight, permanent midnights. Until I can get back home, we'll be together alone. And it feels like forever since we've been together. Until I can get back home, we'll be together alone. But I'm living in the twilight, permanent midnights. Until I can get back home, we'll be together alone. Until we can get back home, we'll be together alone. Thank you, South Austin Music, for all the years.